Welcome friends! This is episode 7 of my Enigmatica 2 Expert Extended Playthrough series, and for me this is a very exciting episode. It is because in the last episode we finally established our permanent base, and now we are ready to work towards finishing the pack and crafting a set of creative items. However, we still have a very long road ahead of us. If we take a look at the quest book, then we will see that there are multiple chapters, and within these chapters there are multiple quest lines, many of which can be started in any order. So, what is the best order to go through the pack? For each person, this order will be different. But for me personally, the best way is to select a meaningful milestone and then work toward this milestone using already existing quest lines created for us by the Modpack author. And so in the spirit of this, let's take a look at this Spectre Coil number 273 quest. Actually, if we click on it in the recipe, the number of the coil is constantly changing. For example, it's 201 now, and then if we take a look, it's 490. But at any rate, this thing generates 32 RF per tick constantly, and you can directly attach the Spectre Coil to the machine or to the battery, and it will constantly generate energy for you. It is a nice device, however, the recipe for this device is quite complicated, especially for the early game. So I'm thinking that working toward making these Spectre coils in large quantities is a very meaningful milestone to work towards. If we take a look at the Spectre coil recipe again, then we'll see that we need a couple items. The flue powder we can already produce in large quantities, and the other three items are conglomerate of coal, shulker pearl, and spectre planks. So let's start with figuring out the way to get spectre planks in large quantities. So spectre planks can be made from spectre wood, and if we have a sawmill, for example, we can improve the amount of the wood planks we are getting from it. However, in order to grow the wood, we will need a spectre sapling. And one of the ways to make spectre sapling is by right-clicking a vanilla sapling with ectoplasm. However, the JEI shows us somewhat more efficient recipe where we can create 10 spectre sapling if we have some wood essence and the nature essence. And here I would like to make a quick disclaimer. Of course, we could potentially use a faster way of getting several saplings, quickly craft some spectre planks, and then progress with the whole recipe for a spectre coil. However, I would like to use this milestone as an excuse to set up automated and semi-automated ways to craft some things and progress through the pack quest lines. Thus, we will establish automated ways to craft other things later. And this is how I would like to progress through the pack. Looking at this spectre sapling recipe, we see that we will need some wood essence and some nature essence. And this in turn means crafting wood seeds and nature seeds. Well, if we take a look at the wood seeds, the components they need is inferium essence, which is crafted from inferium seeds, which is just wheat from IC2 crops, extremely easy to get, and some seeds. And then the other thing we need is tier 1 crafting seed, which is again some inferium essence and wheat, and the base crafting seed, which requires some seeds and prosperity shards. Well, prosperity shards would be normally quite hard to get, but because in our base construction we used quite a lot the hammer and the excavator, which both have prosperous trait, and please see my previous episodes as to why they have this trait. I have amassed almost 7 stacks of prosperity shards. So prosperity shards are not a problem, and therefore wood seeds will be quite easy to craft. However, nature seeds will be slightly harder. For the nature seed, we will need nature cluster, extremely straightforward, block of inferium essence, which is just inferium essence, we will get that, no problem. Tier 1 crafting seeds again, we will get this, no problem. And then inferium ingot. And this is where it's getting complicated, because inferium ingot requires a base essence ingot. And the only way to make the base essence ingot right now for us is cast it from the Tinker's Smeltery using molten base essence. The molten base essence, though, is made in the high oven. And this is where making of a single item requires for us to progress in several different mods, because take a look, we need brass from Thromcraft, stardust from Astral Sorcery, mana powder from Botania, and all of this needs to be made in high oven, which is made out of the scorched bricks, which require pouring seared stone over brick using Tinker's Smeltery. In practice, this leads to the following progression structure, where we are going to be making Spectre Coil, and our current sub-goal is to make Spectre Sapling in large quantities. And so, in order to do this, we will have to build a high oven and create alchemical brass, stardust, and a mana powder. But our current task will be crafting the high oven, and in order to do this, we are going to first move our material automation, which we build in a temporary base. We are going to move it here, and then we are going to build a larger smeltery. So let's get started, shall we? So the first thing I would like to move is our coke oven, and I placed it right here. And the next thing we are going to place right next to it is the blast oven in order to make steel. So this requires 27 blast bricks, which are pretty easy to craft. So let's craft them. The blast furnace is quite easy to make. Again, all we need to do is to craft a 3x3 cube of the blast bricks like this, and then we click in the middle with the engineer's hammer, and the blast furnace is ready. The blast furnace will need lots of coal, and in order to make coal, we'll use the same setup. I moved it from our temporary base. Basically, we create this channel down lined with ash bricks. We go to the bottom of the channel, and then we place these wood piles from Forestry, which are just 4 wooden blocks of any kind. And then we fill the whole channel with these wooden blocks. And once we are outside, we light up this block on fire and we close it. And we wait until the particles go away. And as soon as the particles go away, we can dig it, and we'll get lots of charcoal and some ash. Since we produce massive amounts of charcoal this way, I will use blocks of charcoal instead of regular charcoal to feed the blast furnace. So let's throw in a stack of iron ingots over here, and these iron ingots slowly will be transformed into steel ingots. After a couple minutes, we have 5 steel ingots, and this will help us to progress further in the questline. Because after the next quest, which is Alloy Kiln, and Alloy Kiln is pretty easy to make, and now the quest is finished, we can take a look at Thermoelectric Generator. So this thing requires some steel ingots, which we now have, and it also requires a Constantan plate and copper coil block. The Constantan is an alloy of copper and nickel, and 1 copper plus 1 nickel ingot equals 2 Constantan ingots. And so we can alloy them inside our smeltery. And don't worry, we will move that smeltery to our permanent base really soon. But now we have the Constantan, and we can make plates out of it. Making a copper coil block is very straightforward, because basically it just requires to cut some copper plates with engineer's wire cutters. The thermoelectric generator is complete, but the quest is not done yet. Since the thermoelectric generator requires a hot and a cold block in order to generate power, the quest also requires a lava bucket and some ice. We will generate ice inside the hydrator using snow. Once we grab the ice, the quest will be finished. However, we can go one step further. If we open Engineer's Manual and look at the page for Thermoelectric Generator, we will see a list of items which could be used on a hot and a cold size of the generator, and yes, the ice and the magma block are there. But because the amount of power generated depends on the thermal difference, we can use packed ice and block of uranium instead to get a higher difference and higher energy generation. We can get the packed ice using the ice in the hydrator. As for uranium, I think the most efficient way, if we look for the uranium recipes, is to find nether uranium ore in the nether, and it spawns between level Y38 and Y61. And so when we mine this, we can find lots of uranium ore, but then we can actually smelt it in the furnace to get 2 regular uranium ores from one nether one. And so this will allow us to get lots of uranium much quicker than in the overworld. So if we put a thermoelectric generator down and then 2 blocks of uranium and 2 packed ice, then it will be able to generate power. However, we need to draw power to something to see the result. The next quest in the book is external heater. So let's build us one. Place it down on top of the thermoelectric generator. Then we will see this dot, which is where the power supply should happen. So let's rotate it using engineer's hammer so that the dot points down, and you can see at the top of the screen that the power started to flow into external heater. Now let's place the furnaces around the heater and place some items into the furnaces for smelting. As you can see, all the furnaces are smelting items, and this basically happens without any fuel, using thermoelectric power generation, external heater for the heat, and then furnaces for item smelting. The only issue I found with this setup is that it can support only 3 furnaces at current power levels. Take a look at what happens if I place the 4th furnace over here. As you can see, after I did this cobblestone just disappeared. I'm not sure if it's a bug or intended behavior, but basically this 4th furnace, if we try to place something in it, it basically disappears without giving us the item back. So I will use only 3 furnaces for this setup. What is this setup could be good for? Well, one of the things we can do with this is make a stone production from a cobblestone without the use of the fuel. However, we still need one component to finish the setup. And this component is transfer node and transfer pipe from extra utilities. So let's build us some because we already have network cables. If you are unfamiliar with these pipes from extra utilities, they are quite easy to work with. So let's put the extraction nodes onto the furnaces at the bottom side. And then let's put the piping and the stone from all of the furnaces will get extracted. So let's get some stone. So as you can see, the stone is slowly getting extracted from the furnaces, and we'll do the same thing on top. So now this setup is fully automated and will produce us infinite amount of stone. Next, I wanted to build a clay production setup, and the water generation, piping and energy generation for this is the same as in our temporary base, and now we have here a stone barrel. We need to push dust into this barrel and extract the clay. However, in terms of pushing items and extracting items, I would like to use something different other than hoppers. And for this, I would like to use a flat transfer node from extra utilities. But first, let me actually open up the extra utilities gate by crafting the machine block. And I will use this recipe over here, which uses basic machine casing for machine block crafting, just because I have some. The machine block is complete. Let's collect our reward. And in this case, I will get dark ineffable glass. And now let's take a look at the extra utilities mod quest line. The first mod basically gives us Ender Lily and welcomes us to the extra utilities chapter. We will figure out the uses for Ender Lily later on, but for now, let's open this branch, collect 5 levels, and in this branch, we can complete the quest for the wand because I already used it. And the next quest I would like to do is this flat transfer node quest. I find the recipe for the flat transfer node ridiculously funny and hilarious. So basically we need to turn the transfer node into the flat one. How do we do this? We throw it on the ground and then we use the crushing block to crush it flat. I think this is pretty funny. We can now complete the quest. You can see how this setup works. We have a drawer with the dust, and then there is the flat node in between. It extracts the dust into the barrel, and then there is a second flat node which extracts the finalized clay from the barrel into the bottom drawer. Quite convenient and compact. And since we were on the topic of automated smelting, right here by our crafting and storage setup, next level down, I created this simple setup which moves items from the left cabinet into the right cabinet through the furnaces. So let's say we want to smelt this pulverized silver, it's getting basically extracted from here and deposited into these furnaces for smelting into the ingots. We have created quite a few machines in our basement, and I think we deserve a short break after this hard work. So let's relax a little bit and look at the pleasant topic of rewards. So many times when we finish the quest, like the flat transfer node, we get the common reward. And in one instance, specifically in RF tools when we crafted modular storage, our reward was an uncommon. So if we take a look at the getting started chapter, then there is this quest which I didn't finish on purpose. And this quest is a recent addition by the Modpack author, and basically it says that you can combine loot chests to craft next year. So from 9 common rewards, you can craft one uncommon one. I have accumulated exactly 36 common rewards, so let's spread them out and craft 4 uncommon ones. So now we have 6 in total. And now exciting time. Let's open them up and see what we get. So the rewards which we've got is a scuba tank, blast resistance modifier for our armor, elytra, and 3 loot crates of the storage type. Well, elytra is pretty cool and kinda rare find. The possibility of that is 1.35%. Let me show off how this works. So in this case, this is a Calitra mod, so it's a bubble slot. We can put it here and still have our chestplate on. And then basically we can use it to fly like this. However, the hang glider is a better option for the flight of this type. Basically, it carries you much further. So now let's open up these loot storage crates which we've got, and we get one Certus Quartz tank, second is Elite Gas tank, and the third is again Elite Gas tank. So not a bad haul. It is time to work on our large smeltery. So first we'll get some grout, and then let's use our smelting facilities to smelt it all. While the sear bricks are cooking, let's talk about the fuel source for our smeltery. The Enigmatica 2 Expert Extended book actually has an entry about smeltery fuels, and the fuels could be characterized by the temperature at which they burn and the number of ticks they will burn for. So the bigger the numbers, both of the numbers, the better. However, we are just in the beginning of the pack, and so in the beginning we will use a good old lava to smelt our items, and then we will upgrade later. We need to get lava in pretty large quantities, and I will actually use pretty interesting method which I will call a set and forget method. And for that we are going to use the fluid tank from Ender.io. So if you open the interface and then you dump a single lava bucket into here, then this void slot appears. Let's click this void mode and make it always. So basically the void slot will accept all items. And let's place a stack of the cobblestone in here. And as you can see, the cobblestone is getting voided into the lava, and see, the amount of lava slowly increases in the tank. Consider this setup over here. I built it right next to my crafting area, and in this setup what we have is a cobblestone generator in the middle, which sends cobblestone to be voided into the 4 tanks around it. Right next to each tank we have a redstone comparator, which checks the level of the lava inside the tank and sends ever-growing redstone signal outward. Once the amount of the lava in the tank will reach about 2300 millibuckets, the signal at this point will become 1. Then it will send the redstone signal into this repeater, and this repeater will shut off this redstone torch. Below we have a fluid transfer node, which works only when this torch is shut off. So when it shuts off, this node will pull a small amount of lava into the tank below. As soon as this happens, the amount of lava in the tank will get decreased, the comparator will send a smaller signal, and so this torch will get enabled back, just like you saw over here. So this way we can generate some lava. I did some calculations, and this setup produces 1 bucket of lava per 80 seconds. This might not be much, but it will be totally enough for our initial starting smeltery. And then on the other hand, this setup is pretty cheap to make. It just requires some iron for the tanks, lead for the cobblestone generator, and some redstone to set the signals up. And finally, I found this setup to be pretty fun to design and make. And then I find the method of making lava this way, voiding cobblestone, a pretty interesting way. So I think we'll start with that, and later on we'll figure out a better ways to make lava. In the meantime, we can see that our seared bricks are ready. So let's grab them and let's go build our smeltery. So this is a 7x4 smeltery which I've built. Right now it just has the smeltery controller and then the sear tank which contains the lava, which is automatically filled from our lava generation setup. Now let's set up a drain system. In the episode 4 of my series, 2 people, Jose Luis and Nilbert van Heerden, commented on how to improve my setup by adding a lever to the setup, and this would allow this faucet to pour the material infinitely. However, each time you update the material in the smeltery, you would have to pull the lever again. And although this was a great comment, the Modpack author, Krutoy242, made an improvement of that design, which just blew my mind. And by the way, if you are watching this and you still didn't join the Discord for Enigmatica 2 Expert Extended, please do so. The link is in the description. So the Modpack author actually suggested to put a casting channel below the faucet. And I want to emphasize that if you click on this casting channel, you can add this drain portion of the casting channel below. You just right click on it. So right now my setup contains some seared stone inside. And if you flip this lever, take a look at what happens here. The seared stone is draining into the channel and flowing back into the seared drain. And a portion of it is dumped in a casting basin. So if I take out the material, you can see that the basin continues to be filled, and all of the unused sear stone just flows back into the smeltery. How cool is that? I have updated my setup like this, so we have 3 tables now and a basin. The tables produce gears, plates, and ingots. Behind these tables over here, there is a transfer node for items, and it pulls the items from all of these 4 things into this bottom storage crate. And then the top storage crate actually has a flat transfer node over here, and the items can be pulled from that crate directly into the smeltery controller if we have lots of items. So the items are melted in the smeltery controller, and if we click on the faucet, for example here, then we are producing seared bricks, and the bricks get pulled into our storage crate. If we want to stop the flow, we just right click and the flow immediately gets stopped. And I removed the levers on the top because levers are redundant, as you can basically click to start and stop the flow. I have added a couple things to other sides of a smeltery as well. So in here I have 3 casting tables to make ingots, and here I have 3 basins to make blocks, in the case we will want to produce items in bulk. Then I added these 2 fluid tanks, which if we look inside of them, these tanks push the fluid into the smeltery. And for example, if we want to add lava into the smeltery, all we need is to add lava into one of these tanks, and this lava ends up in the smeltery. Then the other thing I added are 2 wooden storage crates, and they have a flat transfer node between them and a basin and a table over here. So in the case we want to make, for example, lava wood, we add some jungle wood to the crate, it gets pushed into the basin, we just added lava into the system, and so we can then pour lava over the wood, and this will make lava wood, and that will be automatically pulled out of the system to make a second batch. The same thing can be done with a table. Finally, I added a couple cabinets just to store items, another casting table specifically for making tools, and all of the casts are inside this cast chest over here. So I think this is pretty nice looking smeltery, and we can also expand outward once we have more seared bricks. Making smeltery brings us closer to our current task, which is making high oven. If we look at the quest book, it explains what high oven is, and basically it allows to melt some items at very high temperature and provides early access to some things like Ender IO alloys. And in order to make it, we will need a bunch of these scorched bricks, which could be made if we cast a seared stone over the brick. I estimated that we will need about 11 stacks of bricks, so I'm making the bricks in our smelting setup. So let's grab all of that. We deposit all the bricks into the chest over here, and they are getting put automatically on the casting table. We will grab some cobblestone, drop the cobblestone to be smelted, and hit the searing faucet once. The scorched bricks automatically appear inside our output chest. Once we have slightly more than a stack, we can start crafting the items needed for the quest, which are high oven controller, scorched bricks, and scorched drain. Once we have all three components, let's finish the quest. And I'll choose Literate Arcane Focus as a reward. And let's start building. This is how our high oven looks like. It's 3x3 structure, and we can expand it upward and make it as tall as we want. We extract the final molten materials from the oven using the drain through the transfer pipes into our smeltery for further processing. And it works like this. So we throw the charcoal in here, it's getting sucked into the controller, and it's getting burned into the controller, and the temperature is rises. And the maximum temperature depends on the height of the high oven. And then one other important thing is that if we remove this charcoal and wait until the oven runs out of fuel, we can see that the temperature starts rapidly dropping, so that we need to supply the charcoal back to heat it up again. Therefore, since we are still waiting on some scorched bricks to be produced to make it taller and reach higher temperatures, let's work onto figuring out the charcoal issue. Charcoal is made out of wood, and my rats are tired collecting wood back at our temporary base. So let's figure out another way to make wood using wood seeds. First, I have crafted these crop sticks, and we can finish this quest, crop breeding. And the choice of the reward, I will take Mitro seed. This is actually a great reward, and I will explain later why. Next, I just tiled some area over here using our Modpack, and let's just stick in these crop sticks everywhere. And as you can see right away, the weeds are starting to grow on these crop sticks. The weeds spread to nearby blocks, and if you are impatient, you can speed up the process using time in a bottle as well. Next, we are going to craft the weeding trowel and pick some of these weeds which are fully grown. The amount of weed we collected was enough to craft one inferium seed. We will plant this seed right next to our weed farm, which looks exactly like my in real life garden. Just like about everything in this pack, the seed is susceptible to time in a bottle and will grow faster. Once the plant is mature, we can right-click on it to collect inferium essence. Unfortunately, I don't think rustic bees work on speeding up mystical agriculture crops, so we will just have to create more of them and wait. Since the inferium seeds are taking so much time to grow in the meantime, let's work towards the farmer, which is in the actual additions chapter, and farmer is the device which will help us collect the wood seeds once we have them. But in order to get there, let's first open the actual additions gate. And for this we need an iron casing, and so we'll craft tin electron tubes and hardened casings. In order to craft these things, I need to do a little work in the Forestry questline. And in order to place all these Forestry machines, I need energy. And in this case, again, I've resorted to these extremely efficient survival generators where one piece of charcoal is burning for 13 minutes. And then in the middle, in between the survival generators, I have three low voltage capacitors. Two of them are behind there and one sticks out. and this is where I will connect all of my forestry machines. The first two machines will be carpenters, and we already discovered them. I also placed the fluid tanks next to the carpenters, and the next machine will be a squeezer. The squeezer has a pretty straightforward recipe, and once I crafted it, I can place it nearby, and again, a fluid tank. The next thing on the quest line is impregnated casing, which requires either a seed oil or olive oil, and I think I will use olive oil, so I'll plant some olive saplings and break out my scythe in order to grow them quickly and then harvest them. And while I'm standing here with my scythe, I wanted to show that it makes no sense to bone meal mystical agriculture seeds because this doesn't help them grow faster. I configured my fluid tank to pull from the squeezer and then push into the carpenter. We throw a stack of olives into the squeezer and it starts squeezing them and then putting the olive oil inside of the carpenter. Provided with some jungle wood, the carpenter will be able to make us impregnated casings. Once we have the impregnated casings, the next thing we are going to do is work towards thermionic fabricator, which again has a pretty simple recipe except the hardened casing, which in this case require 4 diamond and the sturdy casing, water supply, and the carpenter. I will not worry about automating water just right now. However, what you can do is find this pitcher plant growing on the plains, and using the fluid tank in your main hand, simply right click on the pitcher plant a couple times and you got yourself a 16 buckets worth of water really quickly. I have exactly 1 sturdy casing left over from one of the previous episodes, and then if I place 4 diamonds like this, it will start crafting hardened casing in this bottom carpenter, which now has a water supply. With that, we have the thermionic fabricator ready, and let's install it. The installation is pretty simple, so we have our thermionic fabricator next to the power source, and then below it again we have the flat extraction node, and we are extracting output into the chest below. The next thing we are going to need is a tin electron tube. So it is made pretty simple from redstone, then tin ingots, and then we need to supply the liquid glass into the fabricator. So we place a glass in here, and then the fabricator heats up using the energy supply, and once it reaches the temperature, the glass will be melted, and then the tin electron tubes are getting created and extracted automatically. It's worth noting that once you made all of the tubes, the fabricator will keep heating up, and in order to stop it from doing so, you need to delete the recipe and remove the glass, and it will slowly cool down and not use the energy. I had to waste some more diamonds and bronze in order to make 1 more hardened casing, but now we are ready to craft 2 iron casings, and that would finish the quest. I will pick advanced machine casings as our rewards, and now we can carry on to the actually additions chapter. Once we finish our first chapter and get our laser wrench as a reward, we could do the farmer, but the farmer requires a Enori crystal block, and in order to craft this block, we need to go and do atomic reconstructor. I crafted the atomic reconstructor using one of the 2 iron casings we had, and then I crafted some golden electron tubes to make it. Then I placed it right next to LV capacitor, and both of the things are powered again with survival generators for now. I have used the redstone torch to switch the mode of the reconstructor to pulse, and then we can slap a button on it in order to make these redstone pulses. Here is how atomic reconstructor works. You take the items you would like to transform. In this case, these are block of iron. We place it right below the reconstructor, then we press a button. The reconstructor shoots the pulse down into the item, and the item gets transformed, in this case, into an Enori crystal block. Using these Enori crystal blocks and the last iron casing we've crafted, we can make the farmer and finish our quests. Using the farmer is incredibly easy, so you take this black square of a farmer block and you point it towards 9x9 field where you will plant the crops, and you need to power it, and again I use survival generators, and I promise you further into the pack I will use different sources of energy, but for now I'm just using the survival generators everywhere. So the next thing we need to do is plant something over here. In the meantime, our small Inferium seeds farm is growing and I've collected 11 Inferium essence. Throughout this episode, I showed you the several ways which we cannot use to speed up the mystical agriculture plants, but there is one way which works. And in order to use this, we need to pick up the water using bowl and make bowl of water. And next thing, we'll craft a Inferium watering can using this bowl of water and 5 Inferium essence. With the mystical agriculture watering can in hand, you can right click on the plant, and as you can see on top there, the growth percentage of the plant increases much faster and then the plant matures. So this is one of the ways you can speed up the growth of the mystical agricultural plants in the beginning of the game. The cheapest Inferium watering can only affects the plant you are really clicking on, but later on we can upgrade it and affect range 3x3, 5x5, 7x7, and finally 9x9 plants. And if you are planting many plants at the same time, this can really helps you speed up the plant growth. And I'm actually hoping to achieve that top tier Supremium water can much faster than one might think, but this will happen slightly later. In the meantime, let's craft 2 base crafting seeds, tier 1 crafting seed, and finally wood seeds. So I have done a couple of things here. First of all, I expanded our wheat farm, and then I used up all the wheats we have harvested until this point to make us 35 Inferium seeds, and I planted them over here. On the other side of the farm plot, I have plotted our 2 wooden seeds, as you can see over here, they're happily growing, and then I have slapped in a flat transfer node on our farmer to extract the outputs into the wooden storage crate over here. This setup might not look like much, and these plants are growing rather slowly. However, the seeds are cheap and we can expand this setup. Another thing to consider is that when the farmer collects an essence from the mature crop, there is a 5% chance it will in addition collect a seed of that crop, which means that at some point we will stop crafting seeds and will rely on farmer to produce more. In addition, the reason to grow wooden seeds is rather strong one. If we take a look at what we can do with wood essence, you'll see that we can craft 16 oak woods from 3 wooden essences, which means 5.3 oak woods per wood essence. However, in addition, we can craft 12 wood piles from 6 wooden essences, and considering the recipe for wood pile, this is very efficient. This is 8 oak woods per wood essence. If we burn the wood pile, and this is my burner, let's open it up, we will see this ash block. So let's just harvest 1 ash block, and you'll see that we produced a whopping of 32 charcoal from that single ash block. So the math here is pretty simple. If we use wooden essence to create a wooden piles and then burn them, then a single wooden essence can be converted to 64 charcoal and 12 ash, which means that probably one single farm plot where we grow wooden essence will allow us to produce insane amount of charcoals, which will be enough to power many things at our base. In the meantime, we can see that we produced plenty of scorched bricks, which we could use to expand our high oven. I have used up all the bricks I had, and now we can see that our high oven is pretty tall. It is actually 28 blocks tall, and I really hope that this will be enough for our purposes. We are feeding charcoal into our high oven, and the temperature is rising, and as you can see, it is already above 5000 Kelvin. And in order to make the molten base essence, and this is the reason we built our high oven in the first place, we need 33K temperature. So this means that hopefully in the next episode we can already craft the molten base essence. If we will take a look at our planning table, then we will see that our task for the day, making of the high oven, is actually finished. And in general, we had a pretty good progress in this episode. We have established some sort of infrastructure downstairs. And then if we take a look upstairs, we have a pretty nice large smeltery, fully automated, with an automated lava supply right next to it, the high oven of course, and then the beginning of mystical agriculture. We did lots this episode, and I hope to do as much in the next one. And I also wanted to say that I enjoy reading all of your comments under my videos. I like the questions, I like the feedback, I love the suggestions. Please keep them coming. But for now, I would like to thank everyone for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Same place.